Hello and welcome to the Startup Life Live show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, startup founder coach, podcast host, and co-host of a popular monthly pitch event right here in beautiful Boston, USA, and it's called Founders Live Boston. How is everyone doing? I hope you and your loved ones are staying healthy and strong and at home. And I'm so grateful you carved out time to tune in and up your founder game, because we always need to keep learning and growing as founders, even when we're overwhelmed by the daily operations of our startup, and especially during a pandemic that has added a whole new level of uncertainty to the startup journey. Where are you all hailing from, and what's driving you nutties during this hashtag stay at home? I want to know. I'm hailing from Andover, Massachusetts, a town just north of Boston. And we had a beautiful day today, but it's been green and also due to a lot of rain and a lot of wind. Before we get started too, I want to send a big virtual hug and huge thank you to all our healthcare workers and frontline workers. Oh my gosh, your selfless acts of bravery and compassion have an impact on all of us who are sitting there on the sidelines going, oh my gosh, be safe, be well. So I'm really, really grateful that you're out there doing great things. Viewers, while no one is ever prepared for the circumstances we find ourselves in today, oh my gosh, we can find ways to stick together, to navigate these tumultuous and very difficult times, holding hands, sitting around the virtual campfire, and exploring strategies and solutions to weather this storm, because it's a big one. And I don't know where you're at with your business, if you're going, whoa, we're going bonkers and doing great, or if you're hovering, going, okay, we're going to do our best to hold and be in this holding pattern and a hover pattern until we can get back and hit the ground running. Or perhaps you're unwinding your business. You know, this is a really tough time. Please introduce yourselves in the comment thread. Let folks know where you're hailing from, and share your business and COVID-19 challenges with all of us. Take this opportunity right now, tonight, to connect, to expand your network, and follow each other wherever you glow. Twitter, LinkedIn, put those links into the comment thread so folks can find you and connect with you and follow you and your work, and find ways perhaps to collaborate. You never know where your next aha moment is going to come from. Because here we are at Startup Life Live, where the theme is a problem shared is a problem halved. Your questions and concerns are important. Please pop them into the comment threads, and we'll do our best to answer them live or offline later. I'm so excited. Tonight is a very special night. One of my favorite folks that are here, but let me just say a quick hello. Hi, Nofal, you tech wonderful man, you. I'm so glad. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to be wearing wigs pretty soon, but I appreciate that. Great feedback. Thank you. And Eric, so happy to see you, Eric. And, as an extrovert, this is really hard for me. I must confess, that's why I started a live show. I wanted to, of course, help other founders, bring great folks in like our guest tonight, talk about the issues, but I just wanted to see you, even though I can't grab you by your little faces and squeeze you. Knowing that you're there is just so good. And over in Seattle, we have Diane, Najam. Mwah. Yes, let's partner. Oh, and here's a little bit about Nofal, everybody. Startup junkie, investor, and currently helping small business navigate the stimulus payouts. No charge. You are the man. Thank you for that, Nofal. So tonight, we have a favorite person of mine in the house. I've known Igor for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, probably 2 or 3 years. I met him at Startup Palooza, where he was one of the experts giving feedback on the pitches. And let me tell you, this is a serial tech entrepreneur, a hands-on CTO, a confident full-stack enterprise architect and angel investor, founder of an amazing platform called FastCTO. He's host of the popular live show Whiskey, Wine, and Whiteboards. Don't you want to know more about that? And a fave mentor in the Boston startup landscape. It's Igor Belagorudsky, and we're talking all about tech development and how to not waste a lot of time and money on product development. I know you're going to join me in giving Igor a big round of applause. Woohoo, Igor!
Oh, you can see my cat. There's my cat. Okay.
Okay. Where's your cat in the back? Aw.
There he is. That's all he does all day.
That is so great. We are so thrilled to have you because I've watched you for years. And one of the things I really appreciate about you, Igor, is how you give candid feedback. You are so helpful. No one benefits from sugarcoating stuff. You come right to the point. Here's what you need to do. Here's what's going to work. Here's not what's going to work. You ask tough questions. Are you the Simon Cowell of the startup world? I don't know, but you are smart. And you really add value to folks everywhere. And hey, Diane, you know how much I love giving a shout out to our businesses out there. We are a one-stop shop for small businesses to create beautiful visual photo stories for your social media marketing. Everybody click on that link. We are featuring small businesses in our blog, a great way to get a buzz. Diane is amazing. Yes, I know, Nopal. Isn't that a lot of fun? You've got to go to one of his live shows. You will fit right in. Anyway, thank you so much, Igor, for joining me. Let's go into how you became who you are today, how you became this lean and mean product developer. Please share with viewers a brief recap of your startup story.
Oh, boy. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. It all started long time ago in the land actually far away, because I was born in Kiev, Ukraine. But we'll skip forward a little bit. Let's see. I've done startups my entire life. I had my first startup in high school. This is like back in HTML1, Netscape Navigator Gold days, way back in the day. I've had startups after high school. I took a year off to start a startup. I went to Northeastern University. All my co-ops were startups. I had a startup after college. I went to San Francisco, had a couple of startups, came back, had a startup. All right,
so you're giving new meaning to the word serial entrepreneur.
Well, hold on. I actually don't like that. There's an implicit negativity in that term, right? Because when you say serial, it's like one, they're like, well, what happened, right? Oh,
you're good. You're good.
Every time I say cereal, Siri kicks in, and she interrupts me. Yeah. So now I know. Because every time you have a new startup, that means something went either horribly right or horribly wrong, right? And so most of my startups failed because that's what they do, right? Startups fail. A couple of them didn't. My success rate has become better over the years, right? So I failed successfully, as they say, right? You learn something from every failure. And that brings us to today. Today, I think, as you said, Andy, I'm an angel investor with a group here in Boston called Beacon Angels. I do a lot in the startup community. I judge pitch competitions. I do workshops. I do Whiskey, Wine Wednesdays. Over at GSV. I'm a mentor in residence there. I work with the Win Lab at Babson. I'm actually drinking from one of their mugs right here. A couple of other universities, accelerators. I mentor a Founder Institute. Just try to be helpful generally.
That's wonderful. I have to say hi to my British friend, Nikki Pasquier, still awake. Hello, goddess. Thank you for tuning in. You're amazing. She has a terrific business and great YouTube channel in helping founders using Canva and other elements and designs and branding.
Oh, great.
And I've known her on Twitter for forever. So I just want to give her a quick shout out. That's a really good point about when we have our startups. you're passionate. You're passionate about the journey. And I was just talking to the Blue Startups out of Hawaii executive director today, Chenoa Farnsworth, about this, because she, since 96, has been into the startup world. And it really is about failing forward. It's about learning and growing. And, as long as you have those ingredients where you can handle all the constant uncertainty and the flow and have a high adaptability quotient, you'll get through that. Some people, it's just too hard. When that business fails, they're done, never again. Someone like you says, okay, this is what I learned. Now I'm going to take it and put it over here.
Well, I'll tell you what kind of helped almost accidentally. My first serious startup was right after high school, which I happened to start in September 2001, right? So not at the great time. Then I've had a couple more startups, and my second serious startup was in 2008. Also not a great time, right? And now with FastCTO, with COVID and everything, at this point I'm used to it. I'm almost like the canary for if you see me starting something, it means something horrible is about to happen in the world. So maybe don't follow me too closely.
That's really funny. Although, yeah, but this is the life of founderhood. There's never any guarantees. I mean, Igor, 2 of my 4 businesses came to an abrupt halt for no reason of mine. I had nothing to do with it. It was boom. And it's tough when that happens. Yeah. But you don't give up on your dreams. And this is what I know to be true for founders, is that they need to be fully expressed as a founder. So another idea is going to percolate, come up, and get ready. Or in my case, the ideas always showed up as stray cats at the door, begging to come in and yowling until I let them in. So why did you become passionate about helping founders not waste money and time with product and effort with product development?
Yeah. So, after my last exit, I did some consulting because that's what, people do. And I realized, most people don't have, and most entrepreneurs don't have the benefit of having access to someone like me. Not to be arrogant about it, right? But I'm a fairly good developer. I have a little bit of experience. And you look at, I went to venture cafes, I went to various startup events. I'm talking to founders whose heart is completely in it. Like they have an idea, they have a team even, but they're just treading water. Like they have no idea what they're doing. And there are so many predatory people and companies out there that is just easy to be taken for a ride, right? If you don't know the true cost of things, I've talked to people that have spent an exorbitant amount of money because they didn't know any better, right? If you go to someone so I'll give you an example, right? If you don't know what something costs and you ask 3 people and one person tells you, oh, it costs $100, another one's $110, another one's $120, right? You start to get a sense in your head like, okay, this is about $100, $110, somewhere around there, right? Because 3 people told you have a sample size. What if you found out later on it actually costs $30, right? And all 3 of those people were colluding basically because that's, So that's what happens all the time. It happens with almost any kind of services. It happens with development. It happens with marketing. It happens with fundraising, like anything, right? Yeah. So if you don't know, it's tough. And so what really kind of hit me, right, is I start talking to these founders who, for a lot of people, starting a startup is a big deal. Right? It's like a once in a lifetime thing. It's not like me where I start one, it fizzles out. I start another one, it fizzles out, right? A lot of folks, they save up money, right? Like you have an idea for a couple of years, you save up, let's say $50,000, $60,000, whatever it is. It's like your life savings, and you want to put it toward your startup, right? And you go out there, you find somebody who says like, oh, I'll build this for you, I'll do this for you, right? And you basically give them the money, right? Because it sounds real and good. And then what do you have 6 months later is basically nothing and no money. And now, like, that's it. right? Because you've just spent the last years saving this $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, whatever it is. So it's heartbreaking, honestly. And that's really one of the core kind of principles of where FastCTO came out of.
And when I interview anybody on my podcast, Startup Life Show, folks, you can find me wherever you listen to podcasts. On the Startup Life Show, when I interview these founders who do not have the tech background, I'm always asking them, how did you find your CTO? Who did you bring in? And the horror stories.
Yeah.
More often than not. There's a few that went, oh my gosh, it was a miracle.
I'll tell you, one of the big problems recently, like over the last decade or so, right? Because software development has become accessible to a lot of people. You've got a lot of great programs out there, General Assembly, Khan Academy, Udemy, all this kind of stuff, right? So anybody can pick up and learn, right? So then what happens is you've got a bunch of developers out there who are okay, like they can get something going, and then they go and start working at a startup. And there's almost a de facto thing now where a developer at a startup calls themselves a CTO, right? That's not what makes the CTO. And so what happens is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then entrepreneurs go and they go looking for CTOs, and they think that, oh, my technical co-founder, the person who's going to write this thing, is a CTO. And for the most people, if you're on Angel List or any of those places, if you find a developer who's like, they've got nothing going on and they want to jump onto your startup for 50% equity, and they're like, I'll build this for you, chances are they're not a CTO, right? Because they don't have the experience. Like, they're not out there making $500,000 a year, right? And also like trolling Angel List looking for like early stage startups to find, right? There's a big gap there.
So define a CTO for everybody.
Right. So basically, like, a lot of people that say like, oh, I'm looking for a CTO, what they really mean is they're looking for someone to build the thing, and the person they're going to find isn't really a CTO, and they might have their heart in the right place again, but they need direction, right? So that's what we do. Like, we try to bring a real CTO as just a guiding light, right?
Well, and not only that, it's hands-on training, because I always remember the story about Square, the website guy, right? He developed it in college, and then it started growing like gangbusters. And about 5 years in, and I was listening to Guy Raz's How I Built It, right? Talking about all of this. And he said, wow, I never worked anywhere. So I didn't know about hiring and firing. I didn't know systems, procedures, protocol. He had to bring in a fractional CEO to train him to be that person.
And there's some aspects where having a fractional experienced leader, like, it's not weird, right? Like, if you're an early stage startup, you're not going to go hire a full-time CFO, right? Everybody knows that you don't need one, right? Everybody knows, like, go and get someone to do your books, do a couple hours here and there, whatever. A lot of them work on retainer, which I don't really like, but whatever, right? Same thing with like legal. You don't need a general counsel, right? No. But you do need legal support, right? And you pay hourly for that. But the whole CTO developer thing got really blended and weirded out, right? So that's what we're trying to kind of
and you remember when Fast Company launched? I recall the biggest thing that I enjoyed reading in 1998 and onward in Fast Company were the titles people gave themselves. But the thing is someone could have left the some programming at some company ABC and gone into this startup position, and they decided to call themselves a CTO.
Yeah, you can call yourself, my last startup for a while, my business card said Lord of the North, because, whatever. Who cares, right?
Since we're saying I was chief executive goddess.
Yeah, but the thing is, but very, very seriously, titles don't mean anything, right? And so this deck that we're actually talking about today, which everybody, it's out there, we'll post it to the links and all that kind of stuff. It's a deck I used to teach a Founder Institute class called Product Development. But in general, right, it's a role that matters, right? Like, a role has responsibilities. A CTO has responsibilities. A CTO's responsibility is not developing the thing. It's guiding the technology, the roadmap, the architecture, all that kind of stuff, right? And so that's what you really need. And like a VP of product at one company could be head and shoulders above a CTO at another company, right? So the title doesn't really matter. We work with some folks, like I have friends that have, pretty high ranking positions at, Google and Amazon and Facebook and those places. Would I hire them as a CTO? Much more readily than 99% of CTOs that are out there with that title.
Right. And how do you find folks for FastCTO.com?
Well, so yeah, for us, it's actually surprisingly simple. So because we're like nonprofit in nature, right? So we're not an official 501c3, but our mission is to not profit from startups. And so because of that, both our startup clients and the CTOs that work with startups, because they love the mission, they come pretty organically. So it's all word of mouth, right? So on the startups, we don't do any marketing, we don't do any sales. People just kind of come to us and ping us. We actually have a backlog of 20 or 30 people or companies at any one time to work with. And on the CTOs, frankly, the caliber of people that we're working with, there's not that many people out there, right? I don't want this to be a pitch for FastCTO at all, but there's maybe a couple thousand people in the world that are world-class CTOs, whereas there's hundreds of thousands of developers and startups that call themselves CTOs.
Well,
right?
But I love what FastCTO does, though, Igor, which is it adds the polish. So you come in, you have the right to have the title of CTO of your startup, but you have never been in this role before. Nobody can prepare you for this role of founder, period, let alone founder CTO. Your folks will help someone be able to anticipate what's going to happen, help polish and pave the road, and help them step more fully into their authority and their role as a CTO. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. About half of our clients actually have a technical co-founder.
Yeah.
So half of our clients are truly like, they don't know where to start. It's one or two non-technical founders. A lot of them actually have wasted a lot of money, right? They failed out of one or two dev shops. A lot of folks that come to us, they've thrown out at best a couple $1,000s. They've learned their lesson in, let's say, $5,000. At worst, we've had clients that have come to us, $100K in the hole. This is US dollars, right? $100,000, and let's say 6 months of development before they realize, like, holy cow, like we're spending 10 grand a month on an offshore dev shop. We were supposed to go live 3 months ago. We haven't even seen anything, right? Like, where is this money going? And it's just, it's heartbreaking.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people, like, not a huge amount of people, but quite a lot of founders, they could lose 30K, chalk it up to a life lesson, and rebound and be like, okay, let's do it right. And that's great. And we're there to make sure that the second time around we do it right. But what we really want to do is for those founders that, like, the $30,000, $40,000, whatever they have, like, that's all they have, spend it right the first time around, right? Like, don't be in a position where you've thrown it out. And not only the money, but the opportunity cost of, 6 months being later to the market, right?
Well, and I think what's great too about FastCTO is that it's an impact business, meaning it's not nonprofit, but it's not B Corp, which has a lot of handcuffs attached to it. You are serving the world, and you're doing good.
I'll tell you, it's not nonprofit, not because we can't, but because I don't have the bandwidth to figure that out. And if somebody is listening and wants to help us become nonprofit, I will gladly talk to you. But in truth, so the way that we work is is basically we have a small margin. So we provide these CTOs at cost to startups. Instead of the typical 70% or so margin that big companies, big consulting and staffing companies take, we have a very small 10% margin that basically covers our expenses like Slack, Jira, that kind of stuff. And then anything left over from that, we actually pool into an angel type fund. It's not really a fund from an SEC perspective, but we're so any leftover margin that doesn't cover our expenses, we pool to then reinvest into the startup community.
I love it.
Yeah, so
really
it's a
big
very
thanks on
circular
that.
economy type of thing.
All right. So moving right along, let's talk about product development. What does product development mean? And I always love your comment. Why does it never end?
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you this. And I almost wonder if people should be following along with the deck.
Sure.
But
I've got the link here. And where would you like me to go on the deck? Because I'll do a screen share.
Oh, well, let's just start at the beginning. I'll run through it.
Great.
And Andy, interrupt me, and anybody from the world interrupt me. Yeah. So this deck, I'll tell you. So the birth of this deck was a Founder Institute class called Product Development. Founder Institute is an international accelerator, early stage accelerator. I mean, I love mentoring there because it's exactly the type of companies that, you're not in Techstars and Y Combinator. Like, you don't have the experience. You've saved up 30K and like, it's do or die, right? So let me help you. Okay, so
you ready for me to screen share?
I'm ready.
Okay.
We could start at I have it over here, so I'm not like ignoring you. First slide, second slide, whatever. We'll run through it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all there. It is.
And I'll put it into present format.
Wonderful. Here we go.
And we'll pop over here.
All right. So the whole idea here is that the premise is, if you go online, anybody that's listening, if you go online and you Google why do startups fail, right? You're gonna find thousands of articles that opine about this and that, right? But really, if you boil it all down, there's really only two reasons. Either the founders didn't get along, right? Founder issues, which happens quite a lot, or the issue that I can actually help with, because I can't help you become best friends with your founders, is you spend too much money to build the wrong thing, and now you're out of money, right? So that's basically that's a summary of the sentence. Different ways you can get at that, right? You could throw away that money on a scam like dev shop, right? You could not have a clear idea of what you want to build, so you actually do get something, but it doesn't have market fit, right? Or you've built it in a way where you can't pivot, or you built it in a way where the architecture is so bad that adding new functionality basically puts you out of business. So there's a lot of ways to spend the money incorrectly, right? So that's why I'm trying to deal with here. All right, great. Onward. I have a picture. I usually don't have pictures in my slides, but this one I have a picture. That's an axiom. You can't actually tell because you've got the thing. There we go. There's a link to it for anybody. It's a parallel postulate. I've got a math minor, so I got to throw some stuff in there.
Of course you do.
All right, onward.
Onward.
An axiom, right? An axiom is a thing that's just known to be true, right? So you don't need to prove it. It's just known, right? So here's what's known, right? You're not building a product. If you have a business and there's some software that's at the center of that business, you're not building that software. You're building your company, and the means to an end is your software. And really, down the road, your software could just be one of the things that your company encompasses, right? So you could have different revenue streams with different products, different services. If you have, think about like Salesforce. Salesforce is a great example, right? Okay, you've got the Salesforce product right in the middle of it, but they make more than half of their revenue off the service, right? And off the training and off the certifications and like everything around it, right? And so every little stream that they have has its own software, right? So there's software to teach you how to use the software, right? It's like Turtles All the Way Down, if anybody knows that reference, right? If you don't, Google it. So basically, what the big mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially first-time entrepreneurs, make is they approach their thing as if it has a start and an end, right? So when, like, let's say you approach a dev shop and you say, okay, here's my MVP, right? Most dev shops, even the good ones, even the overpriced, like I won't name names, but like well-known dev shops, a lot of them think of you as a project, right? So you come to them, there's some SOW for here's what you want to build. They build it. Maybe they'll build it better than the average dev shop, better quality, better communication, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, here you go, Mr. Client, and come back to us when you want to do something else, right? But really, that's a horrible way to think about it, because look at any company that has software. Mm-hmm. They have developers all the time. They're hiring developers. Like, why are they hiring developers if there's nothing to develop? There's always something to develop. There's always a next thing, right? And so the problem is, when you approach it from the point of view of a project, you make different types of decisions from when you approach it from a point of view of, I'm building something that's going to be the foundation for my company for the next 7 years, right? Because 7 years is for, there's different types of benchmarks, but 7 years is about the turnover rate of software, right? So whatever you build now, every 7 years, it's like your skin, right? They say, like, your skin changes every some years. Same thing with software. Maybe if you're lucky. If you heard a couple of days ago, there was a big article out of New Jersey that New Jersey is like in dire need of COBOL programmers, right? And so if you're,
I think it's Florida.
Well, maybe Florida too.
For the voting.
And well, so this, I don't know if it was for voting, but like, if you're a COBOL programmer, like, you can make a lot of money right now. But same thing happened in Y2K, right? This is 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, it was a 40-year-old language. Like, I mean, it's insane. So basically,
I just want to pull up Diane's comment here. She understands completely on all the challenges with PhotoPad. Certainly, the growing and developing and getting more and more and more and more features. It
doesn't end, but if you do it right, that's a good thing, right? So yes. There's clients that are like, oh my God, like, it never ends. There's always bugs. There's always whatever. There's always problems, right? Yes, that happens when you do it wrong. But when you do it right, then it doesn't end, because it's like, okay, next phase, new functionality. Our clients want this. Our internal team wants that. Like, onward, right? So it's a very different mentality. So the point is, you got to come in from the right perspective. And when you do that, right, you have to remember that this foundation you're building is a combination of a lot of decisions, right? And I'm not talking about even like the big picture decisions on where do I host this? What stack do I use? Like, all this kind of stuff, like what database. Those are very important, but everybody kind of knows those are decisions, right? But every day, like, if you have a dev team or even a single developer, they make dozens of decisions a day about design patterns, about architecture, about things like table names, right? Which may seem like an aesthetic thing, but it has repercussions, right? Yeah. Like, I'll give you a real example. Just a few weeks ago, I had a client that had a database, relatively working, where every primary key, I'm getting a little technical here, but for the people that are listening, they're a little technical. Every primary key was named ID, right? Which is not wrong, right? But now they're writing complex queries, and the developers, they were hiring offshore developers, and they were getting confused. It's like, I have ID all over the place, and there were a ton of bugs, not because the architecture was bad, not because they were hosted in the wrong place, not for some, big decision that someone made, but for a very small, almost like ethereal decision that some developer made probably in half a second that ended up in effectively a $30,000 mistake 6 months later, because a development team built a thing that was so buggy because of that one decision that it basically turned into 3 weeks of work for a whole team to redo and undo and fix and all that kind of stuff.
And from that comment alone, Igor, you can see why people get into trouble.
Right.
By not having someone to at least have an overview.
Yeah.
To make sure that you're not wasting time or money in building the product. What a huge responsibility. I'm thinking, I always thought food was difficult.
Yeah. And so this is the important part here, right? Is that if you have, let's say, a technical co-founder, or even like a developer you found on Upwork or whatever, they might have, again, their heart in the right place, right? Like they want to do a good job. But just because they want to doesn't mean that they can, right? And the decisions that they make might come from a good place, but they're not the right decisions, and they're not thinking about things in a future-looking kind of way, right? And so that's where this last paragraph is super duper important, right? Somebody needs to be making those decisions so that those developers whose hearts are in the right place can execute on them, right? But that someone needs to be qualified to make them.
I love it. And
someone is a CTO.
And I thought you might appreciate no false comment.
Yeah.
Or someone named the child Null.
Right? I saw the article a couple of years ago where someone's last name was Null, and not because their parents were just messing with their child, but I forget where they were from, and it broke half the databases he tried to register for, or half the things. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's crazy.
So are we ready? Next slide.
I'm ready. I don't remember what it is, but we're gonna figure it out. Okay, MVP. Okay, so this is another thing that a lot of people kind of don't think about the right way. Not because, well, I'll tell you why. Because a lot of dev shops out there try to give you a lot of misinformation about what an MVP is, right? So if you've ever talked to developers, dev shops, whatever, chances are you've heard this thing where it's like, oh, an MVP is just you get it out there, you see what's wrong, you see what works, you throw it out, and you build it for real.
Mm-hmm.
What, I have my 3-year-old downstairs. I'm going to say horse poop, right? What horse poop that is, right? Yeah. If you build garbage, then you might as well throw it out and build it again.
Yeah.
But don't build garbage, right? It only takes, so this is a really interesting thing, right? It doesn't take a lot more effort to build it right than build it wrong in terms of time and cost, right? It's sort of like writing a sentence, right? It takes just as long to write a grammatically correct sentence as not, right?
Perfect
Especially
example.
one that has the same number of letters,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you might as well write a sentence as grammatically correct, right? If you can, but not everybody can, right? So it's the same thing with MVP. If you build it right, then your MVP should be 80% of the next thing, right? For sure, there's always refactoring. You're always going to find out that something you built isn't quite what the market wants, what your clients want.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna pull some stuff back. You're gonna pull some stuff back. That's part of life. That's not even an MVP thing. That's just part of having software.
So how is it that proof of concept is what tests the market? So what happens? What's the process?
Yeah. So a proof of concept is super trivial. It literally it isolates variables and it tests them, right? So I'll give you an example that I forget who gave me this example. This was actually in a Founder Institute class. And they were saying, okay, they had a friend that wanted to write this app. And if somebody knows who this was, I'm trying to remember who gave this example, because it was a great example. So one of their friends was trying to build an app that basically was like a train station cubby thing for bars, right? So like if you ever go to like a bar on a Friday in like the financial district in Boston, New York, whatever, everybody comes there with their backpacks, with their suitcases, whatever. It wastes a lot of space, right? So they thought, okay, how great would it be for bars to have a space with cubbies, with locks and everything, right? And you could see how many are available, all this kind of stuff, right? So the MVP of that would be like a Blue Bike, City Bikes, Red Box type of app where you could find on the map, see the bars that are in the like participating, see how many open cubbies there are, check one in, check one out, pay for it, right? Like that's all part of the MVP. A proof of concept was the guy literally told his friend, pick a bar, go stand outside of it with like a rack you buy for $20 from Bed Bath & Beyond, and try to get people to pay you $1 to watch their stuff for an hour and see if they're willing to, right? Because you got to test out whether there's a market fit for that even, right?
Yeah.
So now here's a proof of concept that costs them $30 and an evening rather than $30,000 in 6 months, right? That's a proof of concept, right? So,
I think that's much more important.
Yeah, well, so that's super important, right? But not everybody needs it, right? And a lot of folks are actually, especially if you are building something and you have industry experience, domain expertise, whatever, there's a market, right? So you maybe don't need a proof of concept, and maybe you need like a lighter MVP, right? That's why minimally viable, like the minimally is italicized because a lot of people don't really emphasize that.
That's right. And yeah, completely agree with MVP. Thanks, Naval. I don't want to put in plumbing after I'm done finishing the walls.
Right. Exactly. So a lot of accelerators will tell you do a proof of concept, then MVP. That's generally the right order, but you might not need a proof of concept. Is basically what I'm saying. But when you build an MVP, focus on the M, but make sure you're building it not as throwaway code, but as a foundation for the next thing.
Yeah, because you're going to have a next thing and a next.
Yeah,
so that's great. All right.
And also, if it fails, right, as most startups do, at least you remove the variable of it failed because my software sucked, right? It could fail for any number of reasons, but it won't be because it doesn't work.
Just somebody didn't want it for many other reasons too.
Yeah, like I've had startups fail for legal reasons, I guess you could say, because and for stupid reasons, I guess you could say. I've had startups fail because the founders weren't agreeing, but I've never had startups fail because we had a addressable market that wanted to use our software and our software broke, right? It should never fail in the midst of clients who are willing to pay trying to use it and it doesn't work. That's the worst way to fail.
Yeah, that's the worst kind of fail.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So I think Diane was asking this, when does development end? Basically never, right? The last successful startup that I had, not counting FastCTO, I was the first developer there, and we grew it to, I think the height was about 45 developers, right? As you get, and like Google has thousands of developers, Salesforce has thousands of developers. Wayfarer has, not after the last couple of weeks. No. That went down a little bit. Yeah,
you're right.
But actually, Wayfarer is a really, really good example, right? Because think about fundamentally what Wayfarer is, right? Wayfarer is an e-commerce site, like so many others, that is like pretty straightforward if you think about it. They've got an inventory of stuff. They've got a website that displays that stuff, and people can buy it, right? So if you think about it from those like super oversimplified terms, you might be tempted to think like, okay, like you built it, great, it's there, right? So now think like, okay, why does Wayfarer have hundreds of developers? because it's always more complicated than that, right? And an MVP of Wayfarer could have been done by 1 or 2 or 3 people, right? But to keep it going, to add more services, to add the financial stuff that they're doing, right? To get into other business lines, right? So I don't know if you know this, but like Wayfarer is now getting into like the fintech side of things, right? Because if you want to buy a $10,000 couch and you can't afford a $10,000 couch, you know, they're going to finance it for you, because why not? It removes one, you know, it's a whole thing, right? So there's always more stuff to add on. There's always more revenue streams. There's always new technologies that come out, right? So
I always laugh with Wayfarer. I mean, viewers, you got to know Wayfarer, I'm probably their worst customer. I don't know. That looks like it had a tear in it. It isn't what I wanted. I had finally one time they just said, "Oh, well, just keep it." it's yeah.
I think I bought. I don't think we bought anything. There's like I love buying things online, but I never buy clothes or furniture, honestly, because I need to see it. I need to like feel it, understand.
And feel it. Yep.
Except for one type of shoe, because I know exactly what size I am in a Puma, and when Pumas go on sale at Zappos, I'll buy Pumas.
There we go.
I don't buy. Yeah.
So development never ends. You're constantly working on bugs, making things better. I know I'm getting a fist bump from Diane, and on everything. I've watched her just improve and improve, more features. And yeah, because your customers are also saying, well, what about this? I mean, just on this app, this platform alone, StreamYard, every Sunday night, 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. EST, without fail, for 66 weeks in a row, the founders of StreamYard meet with everybody and say, okay, so what worked, what didn't, what's going on? You know, what would be on your wish list? What are your questions? Which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm going to jump on that next time it's on, because I have some ideas.
Yeah.
And I just signed up for them, as you know, because of Ande Lyons.
Yay.
Because when I... this is an aside. I don't know how much time we have today, but this is an aside. But when I found out about StreamYard, I could have gone to StreamYard and asked for a demo, but instead I asked Ande Lyons for a demo of StreamYard. Because who would give me a better demo, like an unbiased demo of StreamYard or Ande Lyons?
Thank you, Igor. Thank you. Yeah. So Eric Cox, when is a dead end really the end? When do you hold versus fold?
It depends on why you're in a dead end, right? If you're in a dead end because nobody wants your thing, and like whatever it is, maybe it's software, maybe it's hardware. By the way, this applies to hardware the same exact way. Maybe it's slightly different, more or less. You could sit on this for a little bit and see if the market changes, see if temperament changes, market perception of things, and then try to re-release it, something like that. I'll tell you, but if you're holding because basically nothing works, then you could be holding for a long time, right? Yeah. So like, for example, if you and we actually have clients that have come to us with this, right? Where they've spent some amount of money. It's usually in like the 50K range, right? Working with some dev shop somewhere. And basically they've got clients waiting and ready. Like they want to give them money. And basically nothing works. It doesn't meet the client's expectations. It doesn't meet their expectations. Nothing works. At that point, a lot of folks fold because they can't afford to redo it, which is a huge shame, right? Like they might have the greatest idea. If you spent your last 50K building it and it doesn't work, then you gotta wait a couple of years to try again. And by that time, the world has changed, right? Yeah. However, we also have clients that have, just through their background, whatever, they learned a $50,000 mistake and they were able to try again. And, the next time around, it only costs $30,000. We did it right. And they're live and they're making money,
Let's see. Let's see, because we know this never ends. Anything else Okay, this sounds important. Now what?
Yeah, no picture on this one. I'm sorry.
Are we done?
Right. So basically, oh, and well, I see a question from Naufal.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll pull it. I was going to pull the one up for no fall later because it's a good question.
And
when
you're in charge. I'm following your lead.
So I just want to make
right.
sure we've covered all the basis on this wonderful deck that you shared with us, which will be in the show notes, everybody. So don't worry, you can grab it. Of course, I put the link into the comment area. For those who are watching live, you can pull it up and save it.
All right. So basically, if you are a non-technical founder or co-founder, or even if you are technical, because again, about half our clients do have a technical co-founder or some level of technical co-founder, you basically have three options, and really more, but three like at the top level, and they kind of have different flavors. You could find a technical co-founder, right? That's what you do when you go to like an angel list type site. You could find a solo developer. You could do that on a site like AngelList or Upwork, or maybe you have a friend or whatever, but that friend maybe just isn't like co-founder ready, something like that. Or you can hire a dev shop, and any sort of like staffing flavor is what I call a dev shop. So whether it's a local dev shop, an offshore dev shop, one of these blended doohickeys where they have product manager here, developers offshore, which is terrible usually, or Upwork, because a lot of times when you actually find someone on Upwork, it's just a facade for a dev shop. So just know that that's out there. So all of these,
now everyone,
and usually, not always, but usually you could tell. So usually when you go on Upwork and you try to find a developer, those that are on behalf of dev shops, it'll say the dev shop name somewhere in there, right? But not always. So anyway, so all of these have pros and cons. So let's take a look.
Okay, so I'll go through that. And also, I also really want to understand too, is how much money do you put aside? I mean, what are the typical, fees for bringing on certain people? So the pros for technical.
I will get to that in a slider.
Yeah.
All right. So pros, right? Technical co-founder. And I don't like doing this thing where I'm just reading the slide, but I'm going to do it a little bit, but you could follow along. So technical co-founder is great, right? Because they're invested, their heart's in the right place. You don't pay them hourly usually, right? So that it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, you're not paying them hourly. On the other hand, like they could work half the time, But you want a technical co-founder that's a friend, that's a partner that you can call up in the middle of the night to talk about an idea, and they'll take that call. And basically, that the decisions they're making, they're doing from a co-founder perspective, even if they're wrong, right? Because no one's always right? But you want the decisions to come from a right place. All right. Solo developer, right? They're invested because like they make money off of this, right? So you get a lot of work out of it. They're willing to work weekends, whatever, because they want the money, right? They want to add your project to your portfolio. So a lot of times, like the developer itself, him or herself, not the dev shop necessarily, but the developer, him or herself, wants to put this on their resume, right? So they want to do a good job. They want to take screenshots, whatever. So it's in their best interest to do a good job. And depending on where you're getting the solo developer, you can bargain a little bit, right? So the same way you could like figure out the equity on the technical co-founder side, you could bargain with a solo developer, and somebody that's charging one number per hour. You could say like, well, this is like, can we work with you for X number of months full time, and then bring down the number? Usually you could do that. And then there's dev shops, right? So on the pro side of dev shops, it's pretty good, right? Like you get a lot of skills under one roof, right? It's sort of like working with like a law firm, right? Where you got this type of lawyer,
CPA,
type of lawyer, and CPA, right? So same exact thing. At least on paper, they've got a lot of skills under one roof. On paper, they are mature, more mature than the average solo developer, right? They've got processes, they've got some of the more mature ones even have like SOC audits and all this kind of stuff. So there's some confidence you can get from that. And they're businesses. So unlike a technical co-founder or solo developer, these guys are real companies that have a reputation to uphold, that you could, if it came to that, sue, and they have contracts, whereas a solo developer,
they're going to take you through the process from A to Z.
Right.
They're going to have all of that built in.
Ideally, but that doesn't actually always happen, because let's go to the next slide. Yeah.
Ideally.
So technical co-founder, right? So here are the cons, right? You can lose your technical co-founder at any time, right? If their funds run out, they're out, right? They're gonna get.
This happened to someone about 3 weeks ago. The CTO said, "I'm done."
Yeah, which is, you can't blame them for it. You got to make plans for it. Prepare for the best, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? That kind of stuff. But it happens all the time. And in fact, out of the reason of startup failing, like co-founder issues, half of that is a co-founder leaves unexpectedly. Not because like the co-founders hate each other. It's just like one has to leave, right? They have a child was born, a job offer,
a partner that moves, and they're going with them.
Yeah. So the other con, of course, is to get someone that's good, you got to give up a lot of equity, right? So
is that typical 30 to 50%?
So it depends on. So again, it depends on how you're thinking about this, right?
Right, because if it's a co-founder,
if he's a co-founder, and in fact, right, there is a website I found, somebody recommended a couple of months ago, called Slice of the Pie Slice. Andy, do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm looking it up right now.
Slicer Equity. It's called slicingpie.com. So slicingpie.com is an actual website where you put in, I haven't actually used it, so it's not a promo for slicingpie.com, but I've seen people that use it and they say good things about it.
Okay.
So you basically put in what's everyone's responsibility, and it like recommends how much equity everybody should have, right? And the thing is about it, right? Let's say you have two co-founders, which is like very typical. One's technical, one's not. So the technical one, is building the thing, and the non-technical one is selling the thing, right? And so there's this idea of like, well, we're gonna front load your work because you're building it, and then the rest of the time I'm selling it, so you don't get 50%, you get 30%, right? Which is nonsense, because your work is never done, right? And also, you're going to be doing just as much selling, probably, at least in the beginning. So like, really, it's 50-50. And so I say this because all the time I go on like AngelList and just like see what's out there. And I see these ludicrous things like, oh, I have this great idea, I just need someone to build it. Here's 1%. And I'm like, what? So this is if you're looking,
but this is good. We need to have that range. I mean, I've seen all different variations, and to really have the buy-in, you've got to be able to give up, because it's if that's how your company is structured, it's very, very important role that they're playing. Eric has a quick question. Do you have a dev preference, domestic versus offshore?
Yeah, let me answer that in just a few seconds. Yeah, so on the technical co-founder side, you gotta give up equity. If you get someone that is not super experienced, right, there is this immaturity thing that's a big risk, right? Because there's this weird bell curve with technical people, where the more junior someone is, the more arrogant they are about how good they are, right? Where at some point you get to a point where like everybody thinks that like people, well, it's called imposter syndrome, right? And it's real, where where everybody thinks like, oh, they're gonna find out I'm not as good as they think I am, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you're going out there looking for a technical co-founder, chances are you're going to find someone like pretty young, right? Like age-wise, experience-wise.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times with that age comes, you know, a little bit of an ego problem and all this kind of stuff. And what happens is, because, you know, it's good to have a bit of an ego, but what happens is it's a problem if it blocks good decisions, right? So if there's those decisions that we were talking about earlier, right? If your technical co-founder's face was one of them, and on one hand there is, you know, a week of research that they should do, on the other hand, there is, oh, this is what I did last time. They're gonna do this is what I did last time because, you know, why do the research? They already know the answer, right? And certainly, why talk to a real CTO? They already know the answer, right? And so, you know, I keep saying that half of our clients roughly have a technical co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
Those that do have a technical co-founder that's mature enough to know that they don't know everything, and that's what's allowed them to, you know, be humble enough to reach out to FastCTO for us to help them. And you know,
wow,
it
handy that this person just popped in with this question.
Yeah. So actually,
thank you, X6928 from YouTube.
Yeah. So let me answer it this way. So FastCTO really has two sides of the business. One side is we work with startups in a nonprofit fashion. It's completely altruistic. The other side is we do technical due diligences for VCs and private equity and investors and those kinds of folks, which is very much not altruistic, right? We got to make our money somehow and they can afford it, right? And so in between there's obviously, so this quality control check that you're talking about, we call it a code audit, except we do it from a different perspective than like a dev shop. If you go to a dev shop to do it, they come at it always from a point of view of, let me tell you everything that sucks so I can convince you to rebuild it with us. Whereas we come from a CTO perspective where we say, okay, here's what we've got. Here's how salvageable it is. Here's what's worth keeping. Here's what's worth throwing out. And here's what the remediation options are. Here's how much they're going to cost. Here's how many developers, all this kind of stuff. We're dev agnostics. We're not a dev shop, actually. And that's a very big part of.
But I think it's great that you can yeah, you know, put your eyeballs on it and be able to be that important filter.
Exactly. So what we do, and again, I don't want this to be like a sales for FastCTO, but what we do is we get super duper experienced architect level developers in your specific stack to spend a day or two or three looking at your code and basically giving you a report of like, okay, here's what you've got. And feel free to ping me. I'm very easy. Igor at Fast. I'm down here. I'm scrolling. Don't tweet, even though it says tweet at FastCTO. I'm not as prolific as Ande on the social media. So either email me or go to fastcto.com and there's a little form you could fill out to get in contact, because that actually goes through all the proper channels. Tweeting at me, I'll say hello, but I don't know what to do with
that. That's about it. So we know now about the cons for the solo developer, the dev shop. Are you ready to share yet on your developer preference?
Oh yeah. So everybody could read all this. So okay, dev shops are all the same. So they're literally all. So I'll tell you this. Fundamentally, a dev shop is a staffing company, and the way staffing companies make money is they bill you one rate. They pay their developers or whoever a much smaller rate, and they keep the difference, right? That's how they make money. Depending on where in the world it is, depending on the formula, that range is as high as like 70% and above. So just to put in perspective, if you're paying $100 an hour for someone, that someone's making 30, right? Maybe 40, right? But maybe even less. The CTOs that we work with, we have a couple that were at places like Accenture, getting billed out like $900 an hour. They're making roughly 180. Your typical partner at a law firm that has a bill rate of like $700 an hour, they're making like $200K a year, maybe 250. So that equates to about a 125 an hour rate. So that's basically how the world works, right? So whether you are offshore, whether you are local, whether you are blended, North America, South America, Europe, it all works the same. And so with that said, right, once that's out of the way, dev shops are not all bad, right? Because the people that are doing the actual work are not the dev shop, they're the developers, right?
Yeah.
So they're the same developers that you would find on Upwork. They're the same developers, whatever. So once you kind of level the playing field and understand that, it kind of circles back to the whole thing of like, okay, well, how do developers know what to do, right? And so the problem with dev shop is when you're engaging a technical co-founder or solo developer, you either put your faith in them to do the right thing, or it's very obvious that you need to go and find an advisor or someone like a FastCTO to point them in the right direction. With a dev shop, that gets glazed over a lot because like here's a real big company coming at you saying they're going to do your thing, make your MVP, whatever. So you put their implicit trust in them, and it's very misplaced because for the most part, like they don't care, and even if they care, they don't have domain expertise. And C, even if they have domain expertise, they're going to think of you as a project. And even if they don't, there's turnover. So who you start with is not who you're going to end with. There's all sorts of issues. That being said, so FastCTO is not a dev shop. We work with a lot of dev shops, and there's plenty
offshore as well as onshore.
So actually, and I actually have a slide on this. So our like the best bang for the buck for development that we found over the last couple of years is Eastern Europe. And they're all in like the $35 an hour range, give or take a couple of dollars. So think like 32 through 38, sometimes a little lower, sometimes a little higher. Go back a little bit.
All right.
I do cover this somewhere, but so basically you can go as high as $100 an hour. Great. You can, but doesn't mean you have to. Obviously, if you're working with someone local to wherever you are, it's going to be more expensive if you're somewhere in the US, right? But really, the true cost of like a talented developer working through a dev shop is roughly $35 an hour. And it's climbing slowly. Like every couple of months, I'm seeing it go up by like.
So I want to go to the budget slide.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know which one.
It's here, right here.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So there it is. So basically, with that, we work with a lot of startups, and just empirically, what we see is that the average MVP is in like that 35 to 60K range.
Okay.
When you're using developers that are about $35 an hour. It sometimes dip a little below 35K if what you're doing is like super trivial. And it sometimes goes above 60K if what you're doing is, complex, like ML, AI, that kind of stuff, right? But for most people, you're like squarely in the middle of that range. And so the problem is, right, if you're working with some dev shop, oftentimes you're halfway to that. Like you're 20K in the hole before you realize that like, the milestones don't seem to match up, right? And so now what should have been a 40K project becomes a 60K project. And not only that, even if you restart it now, you have that opportunity cost of having to explain it to someone else, for days or weeks of like what it is you're trying to build.
Right.
Um,
So, and I love that it's more expensive to climb down a tree than up.
Oh yeah,
Never heard
for sure. You know, like when so EC 6928 was asking about the quality control check. You know, we do it from the point of view of let's see how much we could salvage. About, you know, whereas when you go to a dev shop, 90% of the time they'll say throw it out, let us rebuild it. With us, about 20% of the time, we basically throw our hands up in there and say, like, look, like, holy cow, just throw it out, forget it. You know, go buy a bottle of whiskey and just like come back to us on Monday, just reset, right?
And leave it.
But the
Let
other
it go.
20% of the time, there's something to salvage, and we try to salvage it. But you should understand that like it costs more money to fix bad code than it does to write new code, right? Or good code from the get-go. Yeah.
So I want to wrap up this slide deck. I want to answer Nofal's question because we are really curious. Folks watching, you can see this. I'm going to have this link in the notes. Those who are watching live, I put the link into the comments, and those who are watching later can grab it there and go through it. It's wonderful information. Seriously, to be able to walk through and have that kind of advice at your fingertips, and then know that you can call or email Igor at fastcto.com is wonderful. But I love Nofal's question. And of course, he's coming as an experienced founder himself who has been through some interesting startup stories. He asks, you mentioned you have failed startups. Could you talk a little bit of what one of the startups was about and one reason why it did not succeed?
Sure. I can go through a little list even for you. All right. Let's rewind back to 2001. So this is 20 years ago almost, right? I was working with a survey marketing company who basically wanted to build a platform that you can build surveys on. This is before SurveyMonkey, before Google Forms. This is actually like almost before Google.
What? Before what?
Yeah. And basically we built it. We actually built it. And the reason it failed was basically it was way ahead of its time, right? It was a few years before Ajax came out, like the idea of it. So it was built on this, for the technical people listening, it was built with our own like implementation of Ajax, using iframes, using this whole queuing system, right? It's a thing that like took a year to build that I could probably build with today's technology in 3 weeks, right? And so maybe 4 weeks. But yeah, it was super complex. And not only was the technology complex, but like people's minds haven't shifted yet that they could do this sort of stuff online. And so it was tough. It was very tough. So it basically didn't go anywhere. Of course, now SurveyMonkey is like a unicorn, all this kind of stuff. So that's one reason, one failed.
I feel your pain on that one. Yeah. Go ahead.
One of them, we're going to fast forward to 2008. No, not 2008, 2007-ish. We had a really great idea where wouldn't it be awesome if there was a website that you could dare people to do stuff. So imagine like Fiverr, except instead of like asking people to like draw you a logo, you ask people to do the cinnamon challenge or like some stupid things, and then basically people could bid on it. Like, I'll do it for $5, I'll do it for $4, right? And basically we built it again and it was working great. And I come from a family of a lot of lawyers, and basically they held me down. They said, do not dare launch this thing, because on day one, someone's going to jump off a roof, and, best case scenario, break something, sue you, and it's just going to be like, you'll be in jail, basically.
Yeah.
So,
I love your candidness to be willing to share that, because really, folks, it's okay. You start a business, you're testing the waters, you're testing ideas, it's an experiment. And if you're of the mindset of a founder, a lot of times it's testing innovation. Maybe the timing isn't right. I mean, we all know Airbnb would never have made it in 1998, 2000, 2002. It required the fallout in 2008 for that to happen. Nobody would let a stranger in their home. So, that it's all timing and finding that right fit, finding that's why you have to love the process, is really where I'm going with this.
Yeah. And even now, I'm so I've got FastCTO. That's I'm spending 200% of my time on that and helping startups. But where I am able to eke out, a few hours here and there, or during nap time for my kids, I've got a whole list of incubating little side projects. Just last week, I actually launched mangoorpapaya.com, which is as stupid as it sounds. It's a website. Literally, you can go to it, mangoorpapaya.com, and it'll show you a picture of either a mango or a papaya every time. That's all it does.
You're welcome. No fault.
It was an inside joke with my wife for many years. I use it as an opportunity to learn a couple of new technologies and things like that. And I've got a couple of other things kind of in the works for when they're ready.
Hey, so Igor, at our last Founders Live pitch event, Rick and his co-founder pitched with us.
Yeah.
With hey, Rick, put in the URL for your app. I mean, you talk about timing. You're gonna really relate to the timing on this one. But here's the question. Joined a little late. Sorry, my partner and I lack technical experience. Is it smarter to give a CTO equity or raise capital and give someone else equity to pay someone else with a tech background?
Yeah.
Great question.
So this goes back. It's a great question. But this goes back to like the difference between a CTO and the person building the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this ambiguity of late of terms of like what a CTO does. So we're doing a lot of education to try to disambiguate that. So a CTO is someone who isn't writing the code. They're making sure that you're building the right thing the right way. So I'll give you, before I answer your question, keep that up, Ande. I'll give you a really great example of this. So when we work with startups, the sweet spot is roughly 2 to 3 hours a week, right? That we're engaging with a startup, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say it's 3 hours a week. About 2 of those hours are actually spent with the executive team, with the founders, right? Because it's actually more important for a CTO to be there and tell you, here's what we're like, let's fine tune what it is you're trying to build. Don't build this because this is why it's complex technically. Do this instead. Do this in this order. Let's build it like this. And then the other hour is actually engaging a dev team, a developer, whatever it is, and actually saying, okay, now that I've got it clear in my head, here's how we're going to build it. Translate it into developer language. Go do it. I'm here if you have any questions. I actually have a blog post about that whole process. So, Ricky, to answer your question, you don't need to hire FastCTO. In fact, like if you have other resources, great, amazing, right? We're here to fill a gap that you don't necessarily have, right? So you can go and get a CTO, like a fractional CTO, because the definition that we're using, you don't need someone full time. And you can give them a couple of points of equity and then go and hire a developer. Or the smarter way to do it, I think, but both ways work, is to give your developer, get a technical co-founder type person, who is not a CTO, although they can have that title. You can give them that title because who cares, right? Give them the title, give them equity. They're going to love you for it. They're going to spend, nights and weekends working on your thing, and then also bring someone like us in for a couple hours here and there to make sure they're doing it right. Because that combination is what actually works.
I'm going to actually do a quick screen share so I can grab Winglet. This is Rick's company.
And I'm gonna pull up the blog post I'm talking about.
Right. So everyone, let's see. Did that share? Nope, it's not sharing. Okay, let me try that again. Here we go. How's that? Yeah.
Yeah, Winglet.
So of course, who's flying right now? But did it scroll properly?
I see it, and actually, we talked to a lot of startups, and there's a company that is doing something very, very similar, called Air. I don't remember what it is, but something very similar. And not only that, but it's like if they lose your luggage, they get paid. If this, if that, like all sorts of reasons, which is awesome, right? Because as an aside, I do a lot of mentoring, a lot of pitch competitions, and people always ask me like, okay, I've got competition. Is that good? Or is it bad? Competition that's roughly the same size as you is great, because that means there's a market. That means you're doing something that somebody else thinks is worth doing. You should assume that in a world of 9 billion people, your idea is not that unique, and that's okay, right? So great. You validated the market by having competitors. What you don't want is your idea to be like one feature away from something Facebook, YouTube, Google, Yelp has, or Kayak, for example. Because then you don't have an idea and you don't have an exit strategy. You just have a giant that's going to crush you with like a weekend's worth of work for their 1,000 developers, right? That's not what this is. I'm not saying that's what Winglet is, but I actually don't think this is. There's a big player in this space. So
I mean, seriously, they just launched. And it's just like what you were talking about in September of 2001 and in 2008. Same thing with Winglet. They just launched, and of course the pandemic hit, but it'll give you some time, Rick, to work out some more problems, because this is a side hustle, which is wonderful. Side hustles are great while you work out the details.
No, this is great. The way that some of the other folks that are doing something similar is the way that they're making the money is basically the way like Airbnb makes the money, right? So there's these laws that that if you file and the flight's late by this much, the airline owes you, let's say, $100. They take a $20 commission. They send you $80. That sort of thing. So you could do it with, gift card is great as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So, gosh, we helped some folks out, and I'm telling you, this is why I show up. Is helping even one person, 10 people, 20. It's really why I get up in the morning. I don't know about you, but
I will say really quickly, Andy, I put in the other chat. So medium.com/FastCTO.
I threw it in. I threw it in the
perfect. We don't have a ton of articles, but the articles we have like hit every checkbox. So if you're watching this video, there's an article there for you. For sure.
Great. So, folks, this is what I put into the show notes.
So that's one of the specific articles. But medium.com/FastCTO. We piggyback off of Medium, because why not?
And I also
everyone's doing it.
Yeah, and I suggested everybody subscribe to Whiskey, Wine, and Whiteboards at your YouTube channel.
Well, better yet, because that's a YouTube channel where we dump the live stream.
Okay.
Better yet, subscribe to the FastCTO, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, something like that, because that's where you know when we're going to do one, so you could actually watch it live.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect.
LinkedIn is the best, by the way. We're active elsewhere, but LinkedIn is where we really live.
When they subscribe to YouTube, just as an aside, if you go live, everybody gets notified.
That's true.
So anyway,
you're much better than me at this.
I like playing online. Again, I'm an extrovert, and it's important to me to be able to chat with people out there in the world, especially when I'm quarantined here and haven't been able to hug anybody for forever. Okay, so as I just got done mentioning, it's so great to be able to be out here with you all. And founders who are new to this or maybe seasoned, I know that you got a nugget or two from Igor in our conversation today. And be sure to reach out, to us. We're here to answer any questions, continue the conversation, leave it in the archive comment thread. We will get back to you. And of course, to receive an alert whenever I post a new video, which is what you will see if you're looking at this in the archive, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ande Delicious Advice, and to my monthly newsletter. Let's stick together because, my gosh, it takes a village to raise a startup.
I like that.
We were just talking about that with Igor especially. And if you are struggling with how to move forward in the new normal, please call me. I can help you retool your business plan, communicate with investors, negotiate with team members and vendors, find resources, and if necessary, unwind your business. I know we don't even want to say that, but if that's happening, don't go it alone. Call me. Be sure to use the coupon code LIFELINE because I have a huge discount right now. And you can feel better after just even 30 minutes with a conversation with me. I promise.
Especially with Ande, not with me. Conversation with me will surface all the things you're doing wrong. A conversation with Ande will actually make you feel better, for sure.
Even if you're doing things wrong, we'll fix them and we'll help you make a plan. And plans they relieve a lot of stress and action plans. Hey, everyone, next Tuesday, because I'm here every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. ET, Tuesday, April 21st, we have the so-popular self-publishing expert, Dale Roberts, and he's bringing his best self-publishing for startup founders advice. So if you've been meaning to publish on Amazon, a guide, a how-to, a cookbook, anything, please join us and get your questions answered and learn how to do it. Dale is amazing. Be sure to join my meetup group, Startup Life Live, to receive alerts about next events. I'll have all the links to all the goodies in the show notes. And hey, if you're raising money, let me review your pitch deck. Let me hold your hand with your pitch deck. I've raised millions with VCs, thousands with angel investors. And of course, I'm a co-host of a popular monthly pitch event, and I'm a mentor at several accelerators. I know how to help you have a pitch deck that will get you aligned money. And to me, that's the most important thing in the world, is to have investors that are good for you and your business as they are for you. So anyway, so thrilled everybody could join me this evening, especially you, Igor, because every time I see you, it's just so good. And thank you, Nofal. Always great to see you too, and all the great work you're doing out there as a co-mentor at the E4All Accelerator program, Igor, one of my favorite people in the world too. Again, thank you, Igor, for joining me, and everybody else. Stay strong, stay focused, stay healthy, stay home, and remember, you've got this no matter what happens. You've got this. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yay.